I said my last prayer when I was 9 years old. Kneeling by my bed, head bowed in deference, hands clasped in reverence, my eyes closed, I silently spoke to my God. It was all Mr. Moody's fault. Mr. Moody was my scripture teacher. He was more responsible than anyone in indoctrinating me with religious beliefs, the influence from family being relatively benign. The God in which I had been instructed was a Christian God. Indeed, it is easy to identify the branch of the religious evolutionary tree down which my God had evolved, from the monotheistic Abrahamic lineage to the God of the Church of England. I can't recall whether it was one particular lesson that Mr. Moody had given me, or whether it was an accumulation of other lessons, but it had been imbued in me that doubting God's existence was wrong, wicked, and sinful. But I knew, at 9 years of age, that I did have doubts. And so it was that I found myself in this genuflect position, asking for forgiveness for those doubts. And also I had the temerity, or audacity, to do that which I had been told I should never do. I asked God for evidence of his existence. Shortly after that prayer, and within a relatively short time, my God and I went our separate ways. There was no epiphany, there was no road to Damascus experience. He simply slipped away, quietly and gently, like flotsam on the ebb tide. And from then on, religion played no significant part in my life, and so it may have remained, had it not been for YouTube and one Kent Hovind. It was probably in about 2007 that I saw my first Kent Hovind video. I watched with confusion. Was this man being serious? Once the shocking realization that he wasn't joking had sunk in, I found out that his views were not a part of a lunatic fringe, but were actually shared by many. Some may consider that not knowing of the influence of religion into American life, the pernicious influence as I see it now, was remiss of me. But you've got to remember that in this country, religion is largely an irrelevance, a background noise. In the United Kingdom, politicians do not have to profess religious beliefs in order to ensure election to high office. Indeed, politicians will often keep their religious beliefs private, so as not to be ridiculed. Over the following few years, what I found to be interesting were the arguments that were advanced by the religious to justify their beliefs. These arguments can be classified into one of a limited number of categories. I'm sure you're familiar with most of them. Morality. Where would we get our morals from if it were not from God? The fine-tuning or philosophical argument, the it's all too improbable to have happened just by chance. The philosophical argument, normally represented as a variation of Kalam, foreknowledge contained in their good book, whether that be Christians and their Bible and the paths of the sea, or the Muslims with their Quran and embryology. There are also the more desperate arguments, such as seeing evidence for their God in toast, or in trees, or on telegraph poles. All of these arguments are factious. All of them have been debunked. None of these arguments actually really provide evidence in any meaningful sense of the word evidence. Yet they're repeated by the theists with an insistence and a desperation that belies conviction. Or does it? Do they actually believe what they say? I suspect that they do. Why is it that they believe in what, at best, I can politely describe as an extension of their imaginary faculties, or more harshly, as delusions? Why do they believe in arguments that do not scour for me? I have no doubt that those believers are genuine. That is to say, that they do believe what they say, they think that they are correct, they think that they are the rational ones. But I think I'm rational, and yet we disagree. Well, of course I think I'm rational. I'm the one that is interpreting the evidence correctly. And to me, it's abundantly clear that when dealing with the religious, in relation to their religious views, proving their factual claims to be wrong has absolutely no impact whatsoever on their beliefs. And there's the rub. How do we deal with people who have different beliefs, apparently based on the same evidence? Clearly, evidential arguments are not going to work. I suspect that in dealing with a problem of religion, which I do believe to be a problem that has to be dealt with, purely factual, evidence-based arguments are not going to be sufficient. I suspect the answer lies in an understanding of psychology, an understanding of how the mind evolved and how it works, how beliefs are formed and how they are maintained. I've no intention of going into detail in this video on those matters, but I will raise one or 2 points. Look at this map, a map of the religions of the world. To me, it contains far more information than that. It shows, and is strong evidence for the fact, something that we already well know. The religious beliefs of an individual are primarily determined by its parents. And the second most important factor in determining someone's religious beliefs are the environment in which it grew up. There is good reason to believe the old adage, "Give me the boy till he is 7, and I will show you the man," is correct. This map, and a basic understanding of history, is one of the strongest arguments I can see in support of the idea that God is man-made, not the other way round. And as far as I'm aware, this geographical displacement of religions has never been explained by any theist of whatever denomination in any meaningful way, and I would certainly like to hear arguments from the theists to explain this. But just going back to my first prayer, in which, as I say, I asked for forgiveness for my doubts and evidence for my God. So far as the first is concerned, I have no idea whether I have been forgiven or not. But I can say, so far as the second part of the prayer is concerned, I have seen no credible evidence for a God. Yet I have seen a lot of evidence for man having created a lot of gods. That's why religion does not scour for me.